Good day, everyone. Let's talk about something we've all experienced but rarely discuss openly being ignored. There's a sting to it, isn't there? When someone ignores you, it feels like an attack on your worth, a silent dismissal of your existence. But here's the truth: while it hurts, it's also a sign. A sign worth paying attention to. When someone ignores you, it's natural to feel like the spotlight is on your flaws. You might start questioning yourself, wondering if you said the wrong thing, did the wrong thing, or if you're simply not enough. But let me challenge that perspective. When someone ignores you, it's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of their capacity, or rather their lack of it. Think about it. Every one of us is navigating life through the lens of our own emotional and mental resources. Some people simply don't have the tools or the bandwidth to show up for others consistently or meaningfully. Maybe they're overwhelmed by their own struggles, paralyzed by fear of vulnerability, or limited by patterns of avoidance that they've carried for years. It's important to recognize that these limitations belong to them, not to you. Their inability to respond, acknowledge, or engage is rooted in their story, their history, and their capacity at this moment, not in your value as a person. And while it's tempting to take it personally, doing so only entangles you in a narrative that isn't yours to carry. Let me put this into perspective with an analogy. Imagine someone trying to fill a glass with water when their pitcher is empty. No matter how much they want to pour, they simply can't. They don't have the resources. Similarly, when someone ignores you, it may be because they don't have the emotional capacity to give you what you need. This doesn't mean your glass isn't worthy of being filled. It means their pitcher is empty. Now, this doesn't excuse hurtful behavior, nor does it mean you have to tolerate being ignored. But it does mean that you can separate their actions from your identity. You can acknowledge their limitations without internalizing them as proof of your inadequacy. Here's the hard truth: not everyone you care about will have the ability to show up for you in the way you deserve. And that's okay. Your worth isn't determined by their actions or inactions. It's determined by the simple, undeniable fact that you exist, that you are here, and that you matter. Instead of asking, why are they ignoring me? What's wrong with me? Try shifting the question, what's going on with them? What might they be carrying that's limiting their ability to engage? This perspective doesn't eliminate the pain, but it helps to untangle your self-esteem from their behavior. And here's another layer to consider. Sometimes people ignore us because we represent something they're not ready to face. Maybe you remind them of a truth they're avoiding or a part of themselves they've buried. Ignoring you might be a way for them to protect themselves from their own discomfort. Again, this has nothing to do with your worth. It's about their journey. So when someone ignores you, pause and remind yourself, this is not about my value as a person. This is about their capacity, their readiness, and their choices. You are still enough. You are still deserving of love, attention, and connection. And their inability to see that does not diminish it. By embracing this truth, you free yourself from the chains of overthinking and self-doubt. You can step back, release the need for their validation, and focus on the relationships and connections that honor your worth. Because at the end of the day, your value is not determined by someone else's ability to recognize it. It's inherent, unshakable, and entirely yours. Let's talk about pain, not just the physical kind, but the emotional ache that comes from being ignored, overlooked, or undervalued. It's uncomfortable, isn't it? Pain has a way of grabbing your attention, forcing you to pause and confront feelings you'd rather push away. But here's the thing: pain isn't here to destroy you. It's here to deliver a message. And if you're willing to listen, that message can lead you toward clarity. When someone ignores you, the initial sting can feel unbearable. You might experience a flood of emotions: confusion, anger, sadness, or even shame. This is where most of us stop. We sit with the pain, replaying the moment over and over and over in our minds, looking for answers that may not even exist. But instead of dwelling on why it happened, what if we asked ourselves a different question? What if we asked, what is this pain trying to teach me? Pain is like a wise but stern teacher. It doesn't coddle you, it pushes you to look deeper. When someone's behavior hurts you, that pain might be signaling one of two things. This relationship doesn't align with your values. You need to set boundaries to protect your emotional well-being. Let's unpack the first message. Sometimes pain is a wake-up call, a nudge from your inner self saying, this isn't what you deserve. Maybe the person who ignored you has been inconsistent for a while. Maybe they've taken more than they've given. And maybe you've been holding on to the hope that they'll change, but pain, as uncomfortable as it is, can be the very thing that snaps you out of denial. It can reveal the truth you've been avoiding, that this relationship isn't serving you. Now let's consider the second message, boundaries. Have you ever noticed how often we allow people to treat us in ways that don't align with our values simply because we don't want to upset them? Maybe you've been overextending yourself, always showing up for someone who doesn't show up for you. Maybe you've allowed their behavior to slide because you don't want to seem confrontational. But when pain enters the picture, it's often a sign that your boundaries need reinforcement. It's telling you this dynamic isn't sustainable. Listening to pain doesn't mean wallowing in it. It means acknowledging it, exploring its message, and then taking action. Ask yourself, what can I learn from this? What needs to change? Pain might be pointing you toward a difficult conversation, a hard decision, or even a necessary goodbye. But while those steps can be uncomfortable, they're also liberating. Here's another important point. Pain isn't just a messenger about the other person. It's also a mirror reflecting what's happening inside you. Sometimes the hurt you feel isn't just about being ignored. It's about deeper wounds that have been triggered. Maybe it reminds you of a time you felt unseen as a child. Maybe it taps into fears of rejection or abandonment. Whatever the case, pain gives you an opportunity to heal those deeper parts of yourself. Instead of resisting the pain, try sitting with it. Ask yourself, why does this hurt so much? What story am I telling myself about the situation? What do I need to feel whole again? When you approach pain with curiosity rather than avoidance, you'll start to see it for what it is, a guide. It's here to direct you away from what's harmful and toward what's healthy. It's here to help you let go of relationships that drain you and invest in those that nurture you. It's here to remind you that you deserve respect, kindness, and reciprocity. And while this process isn't easy, it's transformative. Pain, when embraced, becomes a stepping stone toward growth. It sharpens your intuition, strengthens your boundaries, and deepens your understanding of yourself and your needs. So the next time someone's actions hurt you, resist the urge to numb the pain or brush it aside. Instead, lean into it. Let it guide you toward clarity about what you want, what you need, and what you'll no longer tolerate. Remember, pain isn't your enemy, it's your ally. It's not here to punish you. It's here to propel you toward a better, more aligned version of yourself. And in that clarity, you'll find freedom, the freedom to choose relationships that honor your worth and to walk away from those that don't. Pain, as hard as it is, always carries that potential. You just have to listen. When someone ignores you, there's a natural inclination to seek their validation. You may find yourself replaying the interaction, crafting the perfect words to get their attention, or wondering what you could do to change their perception of you. This is because as humans, we crave connection and acceptance. But when validation becomes the primary goal, it places your sense of worth in someone else's hands, leaving you vulnerable to their actions or lack thereof. Choosing growth over validation is a decision to reclaim your power. It means redirecting your energy inward, asking yourself, what can I learn from this? How can I become stronger, wiser, and more self-assured? Instead of trying to earn someone's attention, you begin to focus on developing the qualities within yourself that will serve you in the long run. To choose growth is to embrace the discomfort of being ignored as an opportunity for reflection. Ask yourself, what does this situation reveal about the dynamics of this relationship? Am I investing too much of my energy into someone who isn't reciprocating? What patterns in my life might this experience be highlighting? Growth requires honesty with yourself. Sometimes being ignored can expose areas where you've been overextending, neglecting your own needs in an attempt to gain someone else's approval. It can shine a light on unbalanced relationships where you've given too much and received too little in return. Recognizing these patterns isn't easy, but it's necessary if you want to break free from them. Validation, on the other hand, often keeps you stuck in a cycle of seeking external approval at the expense of your personal evolution. It can make you prioritize being liked over being authentic, being accepted over being respected, and being noticed over being true to yourself. But validation is fleeting. Even when you receive it, it's rarely enough to fill the deeper voids within. That's why choosing growth is so powerful. It addresses those voids at their core, empowering you to build a sense of self-worth that isn't dependent on anyone else. Growth also invites you to shift your focus from what do they think of me to what do I think of myself. It challenges you to ask whether your actions, words, and choices align with your values and aspirations. When you prioritize growth, you begin to measure your worth by your own standards, not by someone else's ability or inability to see your value. This shift in perspective doesn't mean ignoring your emotions. The hurt of being overlooked or dismissed is real, and it's important to honor those feelings. But instead of letting that pain define you, you use it as fuel to grow. You use it as a reminder that your worth isn't determined by how others treat you, but by how you choose to treat yourself. Choosing growth also means embracing the idea that not everyone will understand or appreciate you, and that's okay. It's not your responsibility to shrink, change, or contort yourself to fit into someone else's idea of who you should be. Instead, your focus becomes becoming the best version of yourself, regardless of who's paying attention. This journey requires courage. It's easier to chase validation than it is to sit with discomfort and ask yourself the hard questions. It's easier to fixate on someone else's opinion than to dig deep and cultivate your own sense of self-worth. But the growth that comes from doing the hard work is far more rewarding than any fleeting moment of external approval. Growth is also about resilience. It's about learning to stand tall in the face of rejection, knowing that your value doesn't diminish because someone else fails to acknowledge it. It's about building an inner strength that allows you to navigate the ups and downs of relationships without losing yourself in the process. When you choose growth over validation, you begin to see being ignored not as a rejection, but as redirection, a chance to turn inward, realign with your purpose, and invest in the relationships and pursuits that truly matter. The energy you once spent seeking approval becomes energy you pour into your personal development, your passions, and your dreams. When someone ignores you, the sting of rejection can feel deeply personal, leaving you questioning your worth and significance.